All right, welcome back to the double swing, and we've got a bit of a special situation set up here. So, as per usual, it'll be myself and Yumi making picks, this time about the PGL EU RMR B side of the things. But we have a bit of a heckler, a judge, a reviewer. We've called him the court jester. Mauisnake will be joining to judge our picks, add some of his own input, but most importantly, just to roast us, because honestly, this is a bit of a competitive thing. We do deserve some criticism. I've made occasional questionable choices according to the viewing public and NIP's performances. So there's a lot to talk about, and I think we're just going to get right into this because there's nothing to recap. We're recording this way before RMRB starts, and we're only about 3 games into RMRA. Did I just say twice? We all know what I meant. And yeah, I think we should do the first pick before we get any more off.
Wait, we gotta do one. We gotta do one. The pick for AmCall, or you put underdog NIP last time.
Yeah, I did.
He's done it like 3 events in a row, I think.
You can't keep picking these people.
It's a problem.
They're just failing. It's like, it's not even... Usually at some point, I just think, you know, if you're trending that badly downwards, it has to change. It actually has somehow gone subterranean.
Exactly.
Like, they are underground.
I thought it couldn't get worse. These players, these coaches, this investment, how can they play even shit? And they have. They have. It's so ridiculous.
Needed to be addressed. That's all. That's my one piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It's valid. It's valid. I mean, AmCal haven't looked pretty, but at least they've got a win. So it's a little bit better. But no, my first favourite, I think there's not much debate about who this is going to be. It's Team Spirit. I was picking them till the cows came home as underdogs. And now that they've entered the realms of favourites and just smashed Katowice, Donk clearly already the GOAT. Yeah, have to keep picking them. There's a small chance that they regress, and I think when people talk regression to the mean, they don't usually expect the mean to be 1.45 on the Star Rifler, but that's roughly what I'm expecting to get here. That's still going to be enough to get through, so I have no doubts in this pick. Spirit are going straight on.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to jump in here first or not, but I'm pissed, to be honest. I hate that, like, the event where I have first selection, I choose Spirit, they don't even get to play with their fucking roster, and then the EU RMR rocks around. Sure, I get first pick there, but now I don't get to pick Spirit here even for like. I've been a big fan of this team for a bit. I think the fact that they did well at Katowice, but then I don't know. It's weird to see Donk play like intelligent Counter-Strike, because you watched a lot of his online officials before Katowice or even towards the end of last year. He's making a lot of just sort of like limit testing pushes and going through smokes and taking like bad fights. But when we saw him at Katowice, he was actually taking a lot of good fights, and the calling from Chopper was actually just kind of immaculate. Like, they looked like an annoying team to play against when they actually were at the Katowice main stage. So yeah, I don't really fault the Spirit pick. I don't even care whether Donk gets a 1.7. I mean, I'd love to see it happen, but I don't think that team needs that as a win condition, because they're playing just really solid Counter-Strike at the moment.
To get through this one, I don't think there's a more slam dunk pick you could go for other than Spirit, really. So yeah, this is pretty much as surefire as it gets. I'm sure that you'll get to the other favorite in just a minute, Yumi, but this is one where I feel like the less discussion, the better, just because it was right there before our very eyes how impressive this lineup can be.
Yeah, and they've kind of been talked to death. I think during the last Sunday, the Iron Katowice final, I did 2 episodes of podcasts, then a watch party. I think said the word donk about 100 times. I just got tired of it. So I think we should move on swiftly. Yumi, your first favourite pick, who have you gone for?
I've gone with MOUZ, which is not really someone that I usually like selecting, especially in their current state. You know, I don't mind. Weirdly, I don't mind Brolin on this roster. I've kind of liked how he slotted into it. Kind of feels like he's been re-energized, albeit, you know, being on NIP for a while does steal your soul. But for me, it's kind of strange to see how well this team is working together. I think their late rounding, or their mid to late rounding, feels like very disorganized. I don't know that they've got like a lot of protocols built, but their early to mid, you know, like the first 45, 50 seconds of a map, or a round rather, they actually do quite. They get themselves into a lot of very good and favorable positions. So I like this MOUZ team. I think there's like room to grow. It's still very young as well, and I don't think there's going to be problems dealing with some of the like if they end up in a 1-2 bracket, for example. I don't think I have any doubts that they're going to still clamor their way out of this RMR for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. When I saw the pick come in, I thought initially I want to be doubtful of MOUZ teams because we've had so many opportunities in the past for them to be good and then, you know, not shown up. And only you picked them for like a streak of events a while ago as favourites during a prior season, and they did disappoint a lot. But I think this roster's a little bit better. Sure, it does seem to be, as you quite correctly pointed out, the early round side of things working. You saw that in the stats, actually. The guys who take the opening frags had the best stats, and it was quite distinct. And then the one series they failed, Torgi's top of the scoreboard. Everyone else kind of fell down, and they lost 2-0 to FaZe. So maybe that's the key to their success and failure in this, but I don't see them being particularly outgunned in this event, at least. I think a pretty solid pick overall.
I would say that in terms of like a favorite to make it through, sure, MOUZ is as close to a lock as you can get with maybe the three biggest favorites here, but I'd say the first round matchup is kind of like the one point of hesitation I'd have. I'd say I feel like those Guild Eagles guys are ones where like, am I going to favor MOUZ in that matchup 70-60% of the time? Absolutely. But I feel like this is the one team where, like, for whatever reason, they always make it to majors. And so that's the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about, where I feel like they're the team that's, like, going to perform better than expectation, whereas I don't think MOUZ is going to necessarily regress. I don't think there's anything much to regress to. The first two events that they played with Brolin have looked pretty solid. Both Katowice and the World Finals, both making playoffs. And but I will say, like, if there's anything that's going to give them a hiccup, it's the fact that this Guild Eagles team just always overperforms at 2 events per year, which are literally RMRs.
No.
Yeah, I think my worry for the Guild Eagles is I just don't think they've been playing very good Counter-Strike, like even online. I feel like weirdly before, when they had these big runs, they actually played great Counter-Strike on like individual, like mechanical individual Counter-Strike online, and their team play got like slightly better, or they were just using like a lot of like burst or explosive plays at these RMRs or at these majors. And now they're just kind of I can't even like hedge my bets on their mechanics anymore. Like I had to watch them for the Chengdu qualifiers, and God, man, they were getting outdueled by like Ruby and Incilio, and like these are the fights that they were looking for. You know, just straight up duels, and they just lose. I don't know. I'd have lost confidence. I feel like their time has passed.
Well, I'm not going to spill my beans about Guild Eagles just yet, so let's just put it that way. I'm not going to spoil any picks, but that does tell you a lot, doesn't it? Because I've got things to say about them that I'm going to reserve for later. But let's just get my second favourite out of the way, because this is, again, the boring stuff. This is the easy stuff, especially considering in the draft we did, because we do a little personal draft where you can pick from anywhere. We just do them in order for narrative focus, I guess. I managed to get the 2 biggest favourites straight out the gates. I've got Vitality as well. Now, whilst they were, well, ridiculous, it's a massive disappointment to go out so early in groups at a prestige event as the #1 team in the world. I'm still confident in the ZywOo effect. I'm confident in Spigs. I'm confident in this entire team just coming back together and winning this pretty comfortable oath. I think 3-0. There's no, unless they face Spirit in that final game for whatever reason, you know, because buttholes put it together, they should be easily sweeping through this this bracket that we've got in front of us. So I think Vitality, another comfortable, easy pick.
Katowice result doesn't worry you? You know, placing
not enough.
Top 16?
Not enough. I believe in the players. And sure, it's not ideal, obviously. I did say it's a massive disappointment. You can't expect that sort of fluke result to happen twice in a row.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, from the spring groups to then moving into Katowice, you know, I think our talk before was about how at the start of the season they maybe received a bit of a jolt, or a bit of, you know, they were humbled off of the heights that they ended last year with very quickly at the start of the season, and that they should play better as the months come on, you know, sort of ahead of the major. Also, that because of the density of the events, we almost can't afford any of these teams to be slouching ahead of that major, because you can't come from a Katowice and then suddenly think the RMR is just like, oh, we're just going to breeze our way into the main event, because it's where a lot of teams crumble. So yeah, I don't know. Vitality, I think they're a pretty solid pick. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But yeah, I do kind of worry for them coming into this just because yeah, it wasn't a good look at Kato.
The time that they had between Kato and this gives me actually more hope because they know that they failed so spectacularly at Katowice. I imagine that they're a team that, given some time, and they're going to work on some of their problems. The big thing that I'm worried about, though, with Vitality is Mezzi is severely underperforming after the fall finals. He played one really good event with them at the fall finals, and then since then, or at the world finals, that is actually at the fall final, he actually kind of sort of played a little bit beneath expectation. Then at the world final, he sort of overperformed for a couple of games. And then he's just really slid down a cliff suddenly. Like at that one event at the world final, he put up a 1.22. But then there's just certain positions right now for him where I feel like in some way, Mezzi's, like, the word versatility was thrown around for him when I never really saw any strong indication of that as a player. Whereas we're on a team like Vitality, I feel like you do need to be a little bit more dynamic, ready to go for an aggressive play, try to find some sort of, like, that's the way it works. Like, there's just a macro understanding for across the entire map at any given time. You need to be able to do something to help the team gain some space back. And I feel like this is where Mezzi that's been his biggest test for me. And even though the rest of the company for Vitality has been strong enough that I feel like and dynamic enough that I think that they're still working well within the system, I just noticed these points where it's like, I think their game plan in some moments is like, okay, we lost some space on this side of the map. Mezzi, you need to reaggress. And he's just not. He doesn't look cozy in those kinds of moments. So I love throwing a shot at the Brits. And so this, I took pleasure in this one. I just have to bring it up. Just something to keep our eye on, okay? Because 3 events in a row with under a 1.00 rating is very concerning. Or 3 events total so far.
I will say, I don't think Mezzi is the kind of guy to sort of command extra space or command extra responsibilities. If he's told he's going to do something, he'll do it. But I think it's, if I had to make a comparison between them and, like, say, old school Heroic, I feel like everybody was on, like, a level 2 in terms of, like, whether or not they could call their own mid-round or call a play that they wanted to do. I almost feel like Mezzi is a level 4, like, all the way down, sort of at the bottom. If we're going, like, level 1 is, like, highest priority, for example. I feel like almost every other player on that team can call their own round and actually get the resources they need to make that happen much easier than Mezzi could. I don't know if that's like a Mezzi comfortability thing or if that's just like who he is as a person, because he does always seem to take whatever role is kind of left over in a team. But yeah, no, I see what you're talking about. He's not exactly, when he was going in 1-for-1 for Magisk, for example, you always knew his playmaking wasn't going to be to the same caliber. Like, Magisk is a very reputed playmaker, and especially on big stages. So
yeah, pretty much every Mezzi highlight that comes to my mind when I think about Mezzi is him being forced to do something, not him forcing the game to react to him. Like, he reacts to what's going on. He's left in a 2v5, hits 3 headshots. It's never him initiating, so I get the concern. It's just, again, it's another case of there's 4 excellent players on this team, one who's slightly struggling, and one of them is casually the best player in the world from last year. He's no longer the best player in the world. That's quite evident, but that's my other favourite, so I'm not too bothered. I'm very happy with that. So go on, second favourite. Who have we got lined up? Surely there's a big pick coming here.
Yeah, I've picked ENCE. I don't even really know why I went with ENCE. I think my problem is that, if I really boiled it down, Monty, a team that's a little bit, here or there, I feel like will probably make it out of the RMR, but in my mind, I don't have them as, like, one of these sort of lock-in teams. Like, they're too inconsistent, too variable. Cloud9, please buy an AWPer. Apex also just kind of lost identity and didn't feel like they came in with, like, the right mentality to Kato. They kept saying that it was kind of a joke event and all they cared about was the major, which is, like, just the wrong philosophy to have, I feel like. And then Heroic, where it's kind of actually a toss-up between ENCE and Heroic, because I think both kind of impressed me at Kato, but ENCE had a very legitimate run in Kato. Like, they beat some strong teams, they make it into playoffs, they get, like, a Polish squad into the Spodek, and sure, they kind of crumble under the pressure against the Falcons, but I think there was a lot of there's a lot of good looks, and honestly, it was that 9 core that I thought might have some issues playing up to the level that did all right for me. So I like this end squad, even though it's kind of new. I think it's a little strange that Glaive almost felt like a part of the win condition, and that's maybe a worry for me because he didn't play to that same level when they got to the Spodek. But yeah, they've got depth, and Glaive coming in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to me is that's fun. You know, I think ENCE are a fun team for me to have picked out of the favorites. Also, everyone else not a fan of. So,
I think personally, I think you bungled this one because the better team was right next to them. Because I don't see ENCE replicating this level of form outside of Poland. I think there was too much story, there was too much hype. It was, you know, the Norns weaved quite a tale, but it was not going to maintain beyond this one event. So I'd have picked Heroic, if I'm completely honest. I believe more in their players, but more on the ENCE side of things. Yeah, needing Glaive to turn up to win a series as a fragger in 2024 is going to be a problem. Now, they might hype their way through some best of ones. Hades is pretty legit. Like, he's getting better and better. He's no longer as uninteresting to watch as he was back in the day, even as far as the OG times when he's supposed to be a tier 1 AWPer. He's actually a lot better now. So I like parts of this team. I do agree there's some chemistry there with the old 9 core. I just don't see it really carrying over, even on a pure momentum basis, from Katowice into this event.
Man, they're a team that if I were picking a favorite, there's so many other options I would have gone for before ENCE. Yeah, the overperformance in Poland was something I was going to cite. You guys both already feel like you drew some of the big issues with this team. That Poland motivation was one, Glaive overperformance was another, and then like you look at what they did on stage and on stage they actually looked fairly competitive versus Falcons, which is not a team that I necessarily always put the biggest amount of faith into still. So I feel like there's a couple other ones here that I easily would have gone for. I think one thing that's incredibly concerning is they're losing their first round matchup. They're playing Spirit. Like they're not getting through that one alive. So they're down 0-1 in the hole already. And I think they can recover from that, but like, man, I would pick a team that's like I think is gonna win right away for sure. If I'm going for a favorite, give me a team that I think is 1-0 out the gates, and ENCE is probably the one team that of the ones that are in the better half have the worst first round matchup.
Don't underestimate Hades. He'll lock Donk out. You know, you heard it here first.
Hades will lock Donk out. That's some Josh Mix level of just cope right there. I haven't heard anything that ridiculous for a while.
But if it comes true, you know exactly where to come.
You'll make the clip yourself. You'll tweet it. You'll do everything.
I knew it was gonna happen. Of course.
Donk is gonna be in Hades jail. I can't. I can't imagine that. I can't see it. I don't see that world.
Purgatory.
Yeah, no.
To put 1 point back in Yumi's favor, not his pick, but Yumi's favor. I don't think we had the opening matchups when we made our picks. So it wasn't even something that could be considered, but continue to use it as a reason to invalidate our picks, because honestly, it's on us for having done it so far ahead of time, really. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I think we do need to, before we move into underdogs, touch on some of these other upper half picks, because I know I've had a little bit to say about a team like Heroic. I was wondering, Yumi, if you had any other favourites here you'd like to take a look at that are maybe a little more interesting than we've given them credence.
I mean, Monty are just a team that I think will do great. Like, even if I haven't picked them as favorites, and I think their road is going to probably be like a 3-2 or a 3-1, like, this team will run over, like, maybe, if there's so many teams that are on the lower side of this that I just don't think are very strong, that regardless of the road you go, you're going to end up against one of these teams in, like, an elimination game, and you're probably just going to destroy them. So, you know, I would say people shouldn't sleep on Monty. I feel like they've got a lot of very high caliber players, and even with there's a bit of variation in their LAN performances. You know, the more that they've attended, the better they've gotten. So I don't have many faults about the team. Like, there used to be issues with Krasnal and Demka and whether or not they could hold their spots or whether or not they could make plays. But with CS2, I think everybody's just like, wait, you have an advantage when you swing, and Monty were very pleased with that. So,
okay, I do find it a bit weird that it took us 10 years of Counter-Strike and Counter-Strike 2 for people to start realizing you can swing people. Like, Pick's advantage has always been a thing. And sure, it was considered slightly more extreme in 2, but
people are buying AWPs less though, and so you don't need to flash angles as much.
So mental. That was just all mental. I feel like that was
I think so as well,
delusion on Orpa's behalf, but it is a game of feel at the end of the day.
Wait, you guys didn't... Okay, are you guys done with your favorites?
That's our favorites. Yeah, please, come in. Who would you have taken?
Didn't pick Cloud9.
Dude, Astralis, come on.
No. So they're actually under. They're under the.
What
are we? What are we considering? How are we considering that? Okay,
we used
okay.
Pure HLTV rating just to have a standard basis, because otherwise it gets too crazy. Like you had me like sending over pictures, like paint drawn arrows on. Like no, these guys are favorites. These guys are underdogs. So
I see. Yeah. Okay. Then I'll hold off. Okay.
Fair enough. No Cloud9 believers though. We don't believe in the rifle meta.
Their first round matchup, now that I'm seeing it, looks like one of the easiest on paper. They're playing Para. I mean, I'm sure Yumi is incredibly familiar with a few of these guys, as are you, KingT. I'm sure one of these guys might even be a prospect. But as for what they're able to accomplish on the world stage, Cloud9 is going to wipe the floor with them, even if they don't even buy an op for the entire BO1.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Hungarian scene has not produced, I don't think, any prospects recently. So
not recently, no. Torji was a long time ago.
Yeah, Torji being the only one. Yeah.
So even for me, like these guys are not someone that I would have put much faith in to cause an upset. But who knows? Cloud9 disappoint in new ways every now and again.
That's true. They do.
It does depend what kind of mouse these guys from Para bring, though, because based on the current rumor mill, they are cheaters. So if they can show up with some firmware to help them out, maybe they've got a good chance.
They should just bring 360 hertz monitors. They should just
bring a whole new PC, like
whole PC. Yeah, they literally need to bring a better PC. Actually, something that'll get 360 frames. Actually, my bad. Yeah, I just remember the America's RMR is the one that's like on 240 hertz still. But yeah, moving on from that.
Yeah, moving on. Let's open up our underdog picks. I'm gonna do my blind reveal of who my first underdog pick is, because I always forget which graphic I put first. Oh, that's not even mine pick. There we go. I put GamerLegion, that's right. They are... It feels a bit weird after all this time seeing them like higher ranked than teams they are absolutely worse than, to have them finally in their correct spot. So, GamerLegion, underdog, the #1 rated underdog, somehow. I've been a vocal hater, let's be honest, of GamerLegion's players. Not their overall results. I think they're excellently coached. They always get the results on their map picks. If they've got time to prep an opponent, they'll usually hard anti-strat them. So they get a lot of credit in that sense. They're very well prepared. But they're an underdog for a reason. That's just generally because on map 3 of a series, when they're on day 3 of an event and they've not had an entire week to prep things, it looks a bit rough and they don't have individuals to bail them out. But I'm saying it this way. There's enough bad teams in this event who you can really just brawl with if you're GamerLegion, even with your level of players, that you'll have enough prep for the first couple of days, and then you'll just find a way on the last one. 3-2 I'm seeing this team going, but it's going to be very ugly to watch.
Yeah, I was weirdly almost going to pick GamerLegion myself in the underdog category, and I don't like the way that this... I just don't like the mentality of this team. Like, we had I think I've told you this before, KingT, and viewers might be familiar with this as well, but I kind of called them out after IEM Sydney for the next follow-up event that I didn't think they played great Counter-Strike, and they played a little variance-based, and they didn't do well at that event, and they didn't do well for the rest of the year, but still managed to get called out by Ash on Twitter, where we were misquoted and said that we were saying the players should be replaced and blah blah blah, which is not true. We just said and some people in their spots need to produce better numbers for this GamerLegion team, which I think under the new Snack's leadership, Snack's weirdly is the most consistent piece of this team, which as an in-game leader just shouldn't be something that you have to, I guess, fixate on at the top level. And then now at Katowice, they beat Virtus Pro to make it to the make it out of the play-ins, and it was suddenly another, oh wow, Fluke Legion, they've done it again. I can't wait to hear how this is all panned out, and can't wait for this to be discredited moving into the future. Just win games, man. That's all I ask. I have a lot of respect for Ash as a coach in terms of what he does for the team, but the whole social media angle where they're just like making excuses and then trying to sort of play into like the evil geniuses, oh, you don't know what we've had in the pipeline kind of angle. It sours my ability to look at this team critically. Like, when the team does poorly, there's an excuse. When the team does good, suddenly it's gloating, or, oh, you guys didn't see our potential. Just cut it out, man. Like, this team needs to be able to think and look at it self-objectively, because I do think they are like a solid contender challenger team when they get up against some of the big dogs, like a Vitality, an Astralis, maybe not a Spirit. Spirit are kind of in a weird place at the moment. Like a Na'Vi. I think these guys could pull an upset against like basically any of those teams, given the right amount of preparation period. So, yeah, there's just I weirdly couldn't do it in good faith, like picking GamerLegion, because I know that's just nested in there. Like, they've spoiled them for me. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a really fair reason to dislike any team if they've got one guy that's just going to gloat for no reason. I feel like it's why Cloud9 was so hated when Henry G was at the helm. It's why Bleed's hated when Kassad's there. If there's a big personality that's too loud, have at it. Have at it. Hate the team, you know. There should be heroes and there should be villains in these kinds of things. I think that GamerLegion is a team that I'm almost actually slightly surprised, I guess, based off of recent results that they're in the underdogs. I feel like based off of what I've seen lately, like, for example, I haven't liked much of what I've seen from Apex, for example, and yet Apex is ranked higher than them. This feels like there's a, you know, that's kind of the light faults of HLTV ranking, where it's like, I don't know if I could argue in any substantial way that Apex is better than GamerLegion, other than stuff they did literally in the last calendar year. So I would probably, this is a good underdog pick overall. It's a good one. Acor was like seriously, like, exceedingly good when he played against Monty, and that was the one game where I really was like, okay, this is a test of a team that I felt like should be coming into this with decent form. They've had a lot of time to prep in Monty, and GamerLegion were convincingly better than them. So that was based off of not only just Acor, but I thought the calls in general, actually, from GamerLegion have been good. I've been really liking the use of breaking smokes, which I feel like GamerLegion loves to incorporate on a lot of strategies. They're very good at playing against counter utility. If you have kind of like CSGO meta counter smokes, well, GamerLegion has lineups ready to go to pop those smokes and just burst on through. So I feel like they're very ready to play some explosive kind of Counter-Strike, even if they don't necessarily have the best like mid-rounding and stuff like that all the time. I feel like still Snacks has just been in his bag in terms of just orchestrating a CT side. If he knows what he thinks is going to happen next, he is not afraid of just going for a solo dry push peak. And he doesn't need any kind of like flash setup or anything like that. Like, sometimes he's just in the heads of his opponents. I've seen it multiple times, and now it's become more of a trend than an aberration. So I'm slowly becoming a fan of GamerLegion, and Ash is allowed to talk that talk. I think the win against FaZe, fluky, because it's the beginning of the season. No, I didn't really get too excited about that
in
one.
a best of one in overtime, you know, like.
Yeah. Exactly. Relax. Pump the brakes a little bit, buddy. But if you're going to do it against VP, well, it's hard to dispute that, because that team is one of the most consistent ones out there. And then you also beat Monty. It's like, you're padding the resume at this point. It's convincing. It's becoming convincing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for making my point even better than I did. Very, very happy with that pick then. But Yumi, you've taken, well, we've already brought them up. Who have you taken as your first underdog? Big surprise.
Yeah, because they fall into underdog, and you stole Spirit from me. I was like, okay, if you're gonna pick one of the favorites, I'm gonna go for one of the like best underdogs. I went with Astralis. This team just fries. Like, they've got so much firepower. Even weirdly, like, looking at like HLTV fantasy, there's good value proposition for some of the players, strangely, because there's just so much frag distribution that can happen amongst their players that someone is ultimately going to miss out at times. So, I mean, even having Stown and Yabby, where, you know, a little unethical pass, they're going to lock down their spots, that much I can guarantee. And also, Device is dictating a lot of the flow on like CT openers and stuff like that. He's going for a lot of aggressive picks, which is, you know, kind of out of character to the old book version of Device. But I feel like that is something that is really strong to have in the pocket, but it's also something that I expect to change as time goes on. You know, I want to see Stown Yabby. I want to see BlameF, you know, take control in mid rounds on CT sides, because I actually would rather have Device in a clutch than literally most of those other people. So this Astralis team definitely has some work to do, but they're, you know, just on a firepower and an experience basis, I don't think anyone's going to make any major mistakes when it comes to this RMR period.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of the most positive things you can say about them going out in the play-in of Katowice is they did technically lose to the same people Vitality did. So hey, they're pretty much on the same level as Vitality.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, guys, this team is cracked. But yeah, we all know the realities of their firepower. We know how explosive these players can be. I think seeing them have some success so far has been a positive sign, because I thought this team was like really boom or bust. Like they could come out and just be a chaotic mess of mismatched pieces, or they could have fitted perfectly together. It turns out they have not quite fitted perfectly. They haven't quite figured it all out, but they're a lot more towards that fit side than they are the complete crumble. So I'm kind of excited to see how they play here, see if they've gotten a little bit better. Yeah, and I do think it's the best underdog pick available, even if they aren't the highest rated on the ranking. There's a lot to like about this roster.
For me, actually, with Astralis, I think the recent patch, I don't know, so the recent patch actually made peaking just a little bit worse, but it's mostly when you're playing online. And I feel like the biggest problem I've had with Astralis is that they're sometimes too slow in mid rounds, and I think the more active teams that are like just swing first, ask questions later have really had their number, and it's felt a little bit random for that. But then in a weird way, that's why I feel like they've gotten wins over kind of the slower, older thinking teams like Falcons and Vitality and Big at the Blast Spring groups. It's kind of like the way Astralis play, unfortunately, is like it feels almost like it's very good versus tier 1 teams, but versus tier 2 teams, it's probably like the worst thing you can do. I wish they were sometimes more the more active side of things. And that's where I would have hoped by now the Stabby combo coming into play would have said, hey guys, we used to be more active too. Let's just combine our schools of thought for like the best version of ourselves we can. Hasn't quite come together yet, and I don't necessarily know if BlameF and Ronick, their coach by the way, are the two minds that are going to be the ones that like figure this out. So I'm thinking they're still just too strong on paper. Like this is supposed to be the Danish super team, and of any country right now beyond Russia that you would build a super team around, Denmark has to be number 2, if not. I mean, maybe you could have scrounged something together from Brazil, but I think right now they're the second strongest country if you're just taking only players from that country to make a team, and they practically have it. Like you might change out Stare for one other guy like Shush, and then you would have had it. But other than that, this is just, to me, it's one of those too big to fail type of teams, and it's even to the point where like I probably would have said that about G2 in the past when it was Monacy, Hunter, Nico, what have you, but like they always did have Hooksy. They always did have a slightly inconsistent JKS too. Whereas this team, I feel like the production out of Device and BlameF is just so goddamn consistent that for an underdog, they have to be, to me, the underdog with the most consistently high-performing individual players, and then it becomes purely a system problem, which I've already addressed. And I feel like if it's purely a system problem, not an individual problem, those are problems that are much more easy to remedy.
Yeah, I think the one fear I have for Astralis is that, you know, I would think I would be able to draw a lot of parallels with like old Cloud9, where it's like Shira and Exile, I can rely on them to have high output, but the rest of how the game comes together could just fall apart before our eyes, regardless of how many kills these guys get. You know, that's kind of the vibe I get with Astralis, but I do feel like the floor is higher than what that old Cloud9 had, where like Nafany Inters would just go missing, Hobbit was struggling, and I also don't feel like their openings are as boring or stale. Like I feel like Astralis at least like to go for the occasional, you know, be quick, or like take con fast, or you know, just I feel like they like to add a little variety onto their T sides enough that I have more faith in them than I do Cloud9. So you know, even though they're a massive underdog, I'd take them over them any day.
Yeah, their coach, whoever it really is, has done a pretty good job of implementing certain things. So Credit to them. Wasn't expecting this team. I was honestly rooting for them to fail because, well, Stabby, Astralis. That's just the two best reasons to not like them. But no, it's fair enough. My second underdog is the aforementioned Guild Eagles, whose logo, if you've ever seen the official one listed on Wikipedia, is a fantastic piece of just like 80s nostalgia almost. It's kind of ridiculous. But Guild Eagles are playing in an RMR through which they can qualify for a major. Yeah, I'm betting on them every goddamn time. I don't care how bad it's looked online, because I've seen them before other RMRs play completely terrible CS. It looks like a different team at times. And yeah, they've looked bad coming to this one. I don't care, it's Guild Eagles. They're going to upset a lot of people, mostly people viewing, as well as the 5 people they're playing against, and they're going to make it out 3-2 by some way, by hook or by crook. It's always the same thing with them, so I'm picking them just because they have to. It's the RMR.
It just feels so right, though, that like they finally get an organization as big as Guild are, with like proper resources, proper salaries, when they were just, they did their own thing for a long time and they made the majors, probably driven by that. Now that they're with a big organization like Guild, I almost feel like they're gonna get too comfortable. I weirdly think this team has regressed, and Guild sort of acquired them too late in their life cycle for them to be successful anymore. Like, people know what to expect when it comes to Guild Eagles, whereas, the first couple of majors, I do think teams were still like, wait, these guys play like crazy aggressive Counter-Strike. How this guy's already up short, and I've not even, I've not thrown the nade because I think he's going to play a little slower. I still think teams are getting caught off by that because they just didn't give enough respect to the teams below them. You can't make 3 majors in a row, I think, is Guild Eagles. You can't make 3 majors in a row and still be ignored in that same way.
I think Guild was a little slow to pull the trigger too. I mean, I was literally talking to them to pick up this roster in 2021, I think it was, and they didn't really want to take my GM advice. They actually went with Thorin, and then they actually just waited to pick up a team. And Thorin, he's the esports historian. I'm the here and now, and I was on top of him right then and there. And so they're lost to wait on that one because they could have had some sticker money by now. They could have had their sticker in the game, but instead, I mean, you guys are watching tier 2 much closer than I am. You're seeing them much more than I am, and so I have to take what you're saying at face value because they always just kind of do the same thing every major cycle. So I've kind of like come to expect them to ramp up for these kinds of things. But if you're noticing that, I still think they're gonna do it though. I still think it, but it's just that I haven't seen it. I haven't gotten the visual proof. Like, you can tell me the Earth is round, but I'm just living here on flat Earth.
You're mentally prepared. You're just mentally prepared for it to happen, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm not a flat earther, by the way. Not a flat earther.
Yeah, of course you're not. Right. Yeah, Guild Eagles, it has been a little bit worse than in previous times, but I'm just saying, they've always, not always, to be fair, the first major they made it to last year, they looked as pretty alright online, but if you see them in qualifiers, there's a reason they only end up at 2 big events a year. They generally don't play their best CS, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. They're going to find some BS way to make it through. Let's round this off. Yumi, who's your final pick?
Right, I've gone full Danish. So with Astralis as one of my underdog picks, I've also gone with another ex-Astralis member, YouM3 and PREASY. This team's got enough. It's got enough reputed names on it, and I don't think they've played terribly in their online officials. That I'm willing to just say this is like a Copenhagen, Denmark, super motivated buff. Because I kind of like the game that YouM3's put down. I thought he was someone that kind of fallen off towards his end at Vitality, but then, kind of had his resurgence with Heroic standing in, and has still kind of maintained some of that output on this team. I do kind of worry that they don't really have like a proper AWPer. Like, if I'm really thinking about it, they don't have a proper AWPer. And Roy is still a little bit here or there, as is Refresh. But yeah, I want to just put faith in this team. This feels a little bit like last RMR prediction where I picked Into the Breach. This is just kind of me going with my gut and hoping that it works out. Into the Breach probably aren't going to make it, so maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But I want to have some faith in the Danes here. I think it would just be nice to see some of these guys on a big platform like that. So this is my least analytical pick of all of them, but
yeah,
I'm willing to accept them.
It's a roster of players who, for the most part, I mean, maybe Altex aside, I've had kind of a little thing for them. Like, I've liked the way they've played, or I've rooted for them as an underdog. Like, a great example being TMB, who I've kind of kept track of just in the back of my mind ever since he was on that Mad Lions roster, and he's been filling in roles everywhere. He's been kind of like the default glue guy of reject Danish rosters. Like, if you're not sure who to sign and you need a fifth, you sign TMB. He gives you 1.01 every goddamn time, no matter what role. He even calls for you if you need him to. And he's 20. Like, it's made no sense, his career trajectory. But all in all, yeah, PREASY, they are going to need some kind of miracle to make it out here. I don't think this roster has much going for it, aside from that Roy used to be a killer on LAN. And that's probably not enough to carry you through in 2024. I respect the gut pick. I do like it when we go a little bit anti-analytical on this show, because, you know, analysis is all well and good, but at the end of the day, it's all about the divine intervention of your gut. Like, that's really the real intelligence in life, is the ancestral memory. So, PREASY,
I feel like our track record for that is awful, by the way.
Oh, it's horrendous.
I wouldn't do it in the future.
Worst gut feelings, but no amount of bad chicken will stop us trusting it. We're going to keep that feeling going. And yeah, I don't think you're going to get any points for it, but I respect it, and that's what matters.
I just that op thing you brought up is just, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Because we can't even pick Cloud9 because they don't have an opper more times than not.
But that's in favorites, so it's a little different, you know. An underdog, I could.
Why would I? Underdogs. It's 4 a.m. Everyone else has left. You settle with what's there. Like, you're going home with someone.
You just gotta go home with somebody before the lights turn on. Honestly,
exactly.
Like, you gotta shoot your shot then and there. I just looked actually at that match that Ecstatic played against PREASY in the European Pro League, like, BO5 Grand Finals online, and I just saw that TMB had 7. Like, for anybody on their team on PREASY, the most op kills in a BO5 was 7, because TMB had 7 op kills in a whole BO5. Like, this is not a good sign, because the op is feeling a lot better, and like, the reason that it's already hard to pick Cloud9 as a favorite is because of this. So I'm just, bold pick. Just gonna say no dupreeh, like something about dupreeh. It's just got to be something in the stars, you know, like, quite like there's a double entendre there.
Oh, yeah, they've got a lot of solid riflers. They just have an AWPing in-game leader that also doesn't really AWP that well, you know? Like, that's just how it is.
You ain't selling me. You ain't selling me on this one, you mean.
Man.
What about Vorborg? Coach, yeah, that's...
Oh, he did coach that Copenhagen Flames roster, you know?
I think he more GM'd than he coached, weirdly.
He was
he was like the manager.
Yeah.
He was like the manager, and he sold EG on snake oil, and then they just had him. They were just god-awful. He was just kind of standing behind there saying a couple right things here and there, making sure that he's able to keep it up with that, like, 5-figure a month salary.
We'll make improvements. That was like his whole statement on Twitter every time. It's like, we're working on it.
Man,
I'm actually going to say, of all the people that are at this RMRB, he's the only guy I have muted on Twitter. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it.
I will say, you know, if we had to run through the other underdog picks, it's like Ecstatic, you know, maybe could have been interchanged with PREASY here.
No.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I don't roast you faking Ecstatic. I hate Ecstatic as a roster.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can get behind the Salazar circle jerk. You have OG, Para, and Nexus, which is like, Nexus, I think will get 1 win at least. OG will probably get 2 wins. And Para, it's anyone's guess.
If they can bring their own hardware, Para make it through 3-0. Because, yeah, that's the rep they've got. Let's just put it that way. That's the rep they've got. There's been so many cheating accusations from these last 2 qualifiers they've made it through that it's actually kind of laughable. Like, it feels so weird to see them here and talk about them as a team.
Yeah, see, I feel like a lot of, like, the accusations for teams often stems from, like, people that are just, like, nobody has any information on. Like, they've never competed or never done anything, and then all of a sudden they make it through a massive qualifier. But these guys have, like... Yeah, these guys have been around a while, and, like, different teams and, like, sticking with their own sort of country mixes and some of like the smaller level organizations. It's not like these guys are unknown players.
They're not
Yeah,
but
but
also these are not this is not the first time I've heard these things. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of weird.
You want to know one thing that's really concerning about the whole Para situation is that they're the only matchup you can't bet on in the first round on Pinnacle. So
yeah,
it's very, very strange. It's just very strange that like of all 8 matchups, you some reason just can't. You couldn't put money on that Cloud9 Para game. I don't know why that is, but I'm just pointing out what is literally there in front, right
maybe
there on
the
the
odds
website.
are so slanted they thought it'd be pointless or something like that. Something ridiculous.
I just think that's really peculiar.
I do think, you know, especially with these games when, maybe there's less sort of betting data on these guys that, you know, if you're just accompanied, why take the risk, right? So
it's the same thing on Betway, actually. I just checked. Betway's got the same thing on. You can't bet on
Yeah, you can't bet on Para. That doesn't instill me with any confidence.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's 2 websites that are, like, against this even happening.
It's a bit mad.
We'll see how they treat the Asia RMR.
I just want to say, I feel like Heavy God's gonna win a map by himself. He's gonna win at least one map by like he like in the Apex. So Apex is playing OG in that first round matchup. Heavy God might be the best player in that server. Like it's actually up for debate. That's what's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, especially if Regali has to play both halves. So yeah. So Regali on T side, god damn, does that drag down his CT side play? So CT side play is phenomenal, but we just can't get his T sides going. So you're definitely right on that front. I do think OG was a better pick here, even if I also would hate the concept of having to go bat for this team.
Yeah, yeah.
But nah, it's just purely because Heavy God is, as the name implies, God.
I didn't want to get wrapped up in watching the RMR open quals through Maui's stream and just only watching Heavy God POV and being like, he's the best. Like, I had that sort of drilled into me. I was trying to fight the brainwashing, actually.
You're programming. You had to deprogram for this.
I did, because I know Heavy God will win a map or like frag out once, but then you've still got to deal with the fact that like Fiku, man, I had so much hope for this guy. And he just doesn't put out a lot. You know, it's all the spotlights on Heavy God. There's no Zontix in the server here. It's just Fiku is just in a shadow. I don't know what this team is doing. But I haven't known what Logi's been doing for like the past year and a half, so
the most positive thing I was ever able to say about Fiku is he is a BAM average tier 1 professional anchor, like just the most run-of-the-mill average guy. And actually, unfortunately, that has only trended downwards. I can't even say that. He has now become a verifiably mediocre anchor support player for a team that is so desperately in need of some kind of third guy, because Heavy God is the guy. Regali is the guy for a half. And I don't know, like Nexius, I guess, is like a decent space taker, but then you're having Keto as the in-game leader. And I don't think anybody is sold on Keto being the next coming of I don't even know who to say there, like Gabi or something like that. In fact, actually, it is crazy that he made it through and Big didn't, though. So that's something to his credit.
I do just find it so funny that like all the ex-big players are like, yeah, I'm gonna in-game lead now, and all the ex-Virtus Pro players also did the same thing. You know, it's like, Yukindar, yeah, I can in-game lead Liquid. Kicker, yeah, I can do Into the Breach. Yeah, that's fine. And yeah, Keto, yeah, OG, fine. Tizian, I forget which team Tizian's on these days.
He was on
Entropic. Yeah, that's always a fun one. So they've all come from like a big system that they're like, I understand everything I need to know about this, and all I need to do is replicate that with this new team.
To be fair, I mean, the one you can make the best defense for is Tizian, because he has the least to work with in like theory and in like practice, because your star players are Mareks. There you go. Okay. There you go.
yeah. Just end sentence there. Yeah.
There's nothing much to root for.
Also, Tizian and Keto are both apparently massive nerds. You know, like they came up with like half of the nades and stuff like that for Big. So troopers, hard workers.
Yeah.
Doesn't always get that. You know, it only gets you so far. But
that's why I don't study lineups, because as Alexi proved, knowing all the nades doesn't win you majors. So. Practice your deagle shots.
Exactly.
Kids. That's what wins majors.
That's facts.
But all right, I think that's going to wrap it up. We've still got one RMR A to finish before RMR B even gets started, so there's a lot of Counter-Strike to watch in the coming days. Just a heads up for anyone expecting an episode of Retake the Week Sunday, I might put this out on Sunday instead, because otherwise my video schedule just goes off the deep end. 4 videos in the span of 7 days would be a little bit silly. But alright, Maui, thank you for joining us and adding quite valuable input. I think it's given me a lot of more faith in the teams I've picked. Very thankful for that. And YouM3, thank you again for selling. So this is going to be another easy dub.
Don't you dare deface my Danish picks.
And yeah, we'll see what the viewers actually come out with, because they've got an opportunity to hopefully blow the lead, because they are again winning. We just can't beat them. It's all rigged in their favour. If only we could do something about that.
You have to give them the option to pick Para. That's it.
I will for the memes. For the memes, I'll give them the option to pick Para and take Astralis off the list. All right. Thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, you're a hero, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.